Hi, I'm Em. I'm a single parent and I make less than $60,000 a year. And this year, I have had to take a look at how I handle my money and what I have of it. So, over the last several years, I have made financial decisions that just don't match with my reality. And those decisions have caught up with me now. So I have to make some changes. So I'm going to be sharing with you what went wrong and what I've already changed, and then how I'm going to rebuild my finances in a way that I think will actually work for me. So over the last several months, I've been kind of looking at lots of different YouTube channels about finances. And what I've seen is a lot of people who make a lot more money than I do, or people who are focused on doing things like no buys or low buys. And that isn't something that really fits for me, right? I can't do a low buy because my whole life is really going to be a low buy. And I have to figure out a way that this is going to work for me over the long term. I'm also a single parent, so I don't have the ability to go and get a second job or the ability to um, generate a ton more income doing other things. So if you're a single parent, if you're on a more modest income like I am, or you just need a financial reset, then you are in the right place. And I hope that you will stay tuned. So, to explain why I need to reset this serious, I have to share something that is really uncomfortable for me and really embarrassing. And to be frank, I haven't told anyone, and I am surprised that I'm going to put this online for other people to see. But I think it's important for you to understand this as I move forward. So I'm very fortunate that I don't have credit card debt. But that is because I inherited $50,000 several years ago. And I have managed to squander $50,000 over time. I didn't just, take a crazy cruise or decide to go on a massive shopping spree. It's taken several years of spending beyond what I make on a monthly basis. And I have always been one of those people that if I have money in my pocket, it burns a hole. So I'm sure some of you have heard the expression, especially if you're a little older like I am, that some people are savers, some people are spenders. I have always been a spender, and I inherited this money and I spent it, and it is gone now. But because of that, that has been a major wake-up call, especially when I can't think of exactly what I spent it on. I know I spent it on things like clothes, toys for my child, some experience things, some vacations. I know I spent it on stuff. I just am not 100% sure where all that money went. And it's a lot of money. And so I have to figure out kind of how I'm now going to live within my means. And how do I rebuild my finances? Because I still need things like savings. So when you earn what I earn and you lose that amount of money, it kind of changes everything for you. Like you have to figure out a new normal, and that's what I've got to do. So I'm not sharing that I lost that money for shock value. I'm sharing it because, maybe you've lost money. Maybe you have a ton of credit card debt. As I said, I'm just fortunate that I inherited this money. I think that if we put the right systems in place, even on a modest income, that I can recover financially, and that I'm going to recover financially. So, that much money and squandering that much money, even if it was over time, has kind of forced me to take a really hard look at my habits and how I'm spending my money. So, the first thing that I realized is I didn't know what I was actually spending my money on. So I didn't know any of the numbers. So that's been like the first lesson for me is I have to know the numbers and I have to actually have a real budget for myself, and like a real budget, one that is realistic for my life, not an idealized budget. So that has been one of the things that has been kind of a bit of a game changer for me so far along this process, is that I've put together a realistic budget. So always before, I would create this budget for myself that would be like, oh, I'm going to save like $500 a month because I've got this much left over, and I'm only going to spend like $50 on discretionary things, or on clothes, or on things that I don't need, but I can't actually stick to that. And so that idealized budget doesn't mean anything if I can't stick to anything. So I've had to come up with a realistic budget of what I feel like I can actually stick to. So I'm doing that in phases. So my number one phase is I have to spend no more than what I earn each month. That's the first goal, right? If I can't do that, then no amount of savings goals will even matter if I can't live within my means. So that's been my first thing, is to set a realistic budget that I feel like I can stick to. So to do that, the next lesson that I've had to figure out is, how do I stop the leaks? So going back to those numbers, I've had to look at exactly what I've been spending and where I've been spending that money. So maybe for some of you too, like I have been caught off guard by an unexpected bill. So for example, like I have needed to replace the battery in my car. Well, I didn't expect that month. And so I had already spent the money that I would have used for that on something stupid. Usually clothes, because that's usually been my big thing, is clothes. I have had like some other even expected bill, like I knew that this was coming. So for example, I knew like my Amazon Prime came out once a month, or came out, sorry, once a year, because I paid for it annually. I canceled it, so it's not coming out anymore. But I knew that it would come out once a year, but I didn't plan for that. And so all of a sudden, I would have $139 charge that I wasn't expecting, and that I would, take from this money that I inherited to help pay for all of those kind of things. So of having to figure out where those leaks are. And as I mentioned, I canceled the Amazon Prime because one of the leaks that I found was my Amazon.com purchases. Like I would just order things like randomly. Like sometimes I'd order things for work that I'd be like, oh, I'll just cover that. It's only $5 or it's only $7, and oh, it's free shipping. So all those kind of little leaks, I've had to figure out where those are so that I can put together a more realistic budget for myself, and to prevent myself from kind of spending in some of those categories. And so that brings me to like the third final lesson that I kind of figured out from looking at the numbers, is that I have not put proper limits on my discretionary spending. So I haven't given myself boundaries. Now, I say that I have given myself boundaries, but I haven't stuck to them, which comes back to the realistic budget for myself. So I would tell myself, I will only spend $50 on clothes this month. But then in the middle of the month, I would see something go on sale and I think, oh, that's really cute. I'm going to go ahead and get that. I'll borrow from next month. Or, oh, I'll just shift some money around from my savings account. And I could do that because the money was there, but it is not there anymore. And so I need to make sure that I'm giving myself realistic boundaries to stick to. So, and actually sticking to those. I think all this comes down to is like, I have to actually stick to what I say that I'm going to do. So I've been doing much better recently because I've been giving myself a more realistic budget. So a lot of the boundaries that I created for myself were based on these idealized budgets that were not realistic for me to follow in the first place. So those have been my three big lessons, like knowing my numbers, like having a realistic budget that is I could stick to, figuring out where the leaks are in my budget in terms of like where money is just kind of going and disappearing to that I don't know, and then putting some real boundaries on myself for like that discretionary spending. So I have built some systems that I think are going to work for me. I still need to build some additional systems that I think are going to work for me. I am trying to be kind to myself and recognize that I just need to make progress. I don't have to be perfect, that I'm going to make mistakes along the way, that I'm still going to spend too much sometimes on things that I'm going to look back on and think that that's stupid. And that my goal really is for smaller, consistent wins, because I know that if those adding up will make a real difference. That's how I kind of went through spending so much money, is that I spent in small sums and it added up. So I'm trying to reverse engineer things, I think. I'm hoping. So what this is not going to be is a no buy. Like, that's not realistic for me. I'm not capable of doing a no buy. Like, there are things that I won't buy because I'm not interested in them, but I won't do a no buy, like knowing that there are things that I want to do. I need to figure out a different way other than that. The same thing with a low buy. My whole life is one big low buy. So, claiming a low buy and then putting limits on that is not going to work for me, because there's not going to be an end to that. So I've got to figure out some systems that will work for me in the meantime. So if you want to rebuild too, you are not alone. I'm going to be sharing the mistakes that I make, because I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of them. And then the systems that I use and what works for like a real person like me. I'm not some financial guru out there. So if that sounds like your kind of channel, then subscribe and join me. So I think that we can figure this out together. Thanks. See you next time.